My mom created a fun way for us to learn the most important rules of life. Yah's command.
With Yah's Big Ten Commands, we get to see His will best for us.
Keep Yah first.
No graven images.
Don't take Yah's name in vain.
Remember Shabbat and keep it holy.
Honor your parents.
Do not kill.
Mr. and Mrs., don't cheat.
Don't steal.
Don't tell lies.
Don't covet.
This changes everything. Get your set of Yah's Big Ten Commands at Big Ten Designs today.
Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land.
Identity. We are bombarded by images of who we think we are every day of our lives. But some people don't think. They know. How about you? I didn't know my true identity, culture, heritage, or roots. As a Christian, I was told the only thing that mattered was my identity was found in Christ. But what about the Asian, Arab, Coptic, or European believer? Do they know their identity? Does it matter to them? How about you? This is who they tell us we are. This is what we know. But is it the truth? Take a journey with me as I share my story of faith and identity and discover why both life in the Savior and identity matters. Why our past, present, and future hinges on the knowledge of our true identity. Why all believers in the Messiah must wake up before it's too late. As the world gets darker, it is time for Yah's people to shine their light. Who you really are is one of the most important questions on earth. It's time you knew.
Israelite. Israelite. Israel. Israelite. Israelites, how to know your identity without losing your Savior.
Israelites!
I believe in you. Tell me, do you believe in you? Reach for me and lead me to the hiding place. Come away and rest.
All right. Grace and peace. Salama family. How y'all doing tonight? Shabbat shalom. I don't know about y'all, but I've been waiting for the rest day to come. Day of rest. I've been waiting for it. I mean, I tell you, it's like, there's so much stuff going on right now. It's just spiritually exhausting. And that's why I told y'all, you got to stay in your secret place. You got to stay in your secret place in order to navigate through everything that is going on in this life right now. But I hope that y'all are well, and I hope that y'all get much rest this weekend. I pray that I do, and my family does as well. Do me a favor. Hold on. If you have not filled out my poll, go ahead and fill out my poll. Y'all ain't even got to swell. Y'all ain't got to swell. If you didn't participate, you could just keep it 100. But if you did participate, go ahead and let us know. I'm going to pull that poll up and see what the numbers are looking like right now for all of us to take a look at. All right? This is me, y'all, right here. So 83% so far of you participated in the blackout today. Shout out to all of you. All right? And 16% of you did not. 84%, okay? 16% of you did not participate in the blackout today. It's cool. It's cool. Listen, we are in the process of learning how to be effective in unity. We're in the process. This is a process. So shout out to those of you who participated. I'm going to keep that poll going. So maybe I'll check it later on at the end, towards the end of the live, for people who aren't here in the beginning. But shout out to all of you. Like I said, we're in the beginning stages as a nation. First off, understand that we are a nation, right? I mean, praise y'all for the Great Awakening. But understanding that we are a nation within nations, right? So we are in the place of understanding that we are not the color of a crayon, even though we say black, because that's just an understood term. We are true Israel. We are the descendants of the biblical Israelites. And we praise Yahuwah for that. So as we embark on this journey of self-discovery, identity, and our faith in the Savior Yahushua HaMashiach, all praises to the Most High, we are learning how to work together. So that's what we're here for, right? And we're going to dive in today to really dissect that a little bit more, because so much of our history, and today is technically the last day of Black History Month, right? So February 28th, the last day of Black History Month, I wanted to take y'all on a little journey in the back yonder. But before I do, I'm going to give a shout out to those of you who are here, because y'all know y'all fam. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. If you have not hit the thumbs up button, go ahead and do that now. Like, share, and subscribe. If you are not subscribed to this channel, please go ahead and hit that bell, hit that notification bell, hit that subscribe, do all that good stuff so that you can be notified when I come on. All right? So shout out to Sister Barbara in the building. Peace and blessings to you. Brother Timothy in the building. Good to see you as always, my brother. Shout out to my mods as a whole. Praise y'all for each of you. Brother Clipper Possible in the building. Peace and blessings to you. Sister Malaka, I hear you, sis. Good to see you if you're in the building now. If you're not, good to see you on the replay. All right. We got Marcella Mitchell in the building. Peace and blessings to you. Desiree in the building. Desiree, daughter of the King. One of my mods, thank you so much for being here and for helping to serve on this platform. I appreciate you. Yahel Ben Yehuda, peace and blessings to you. Got Sister Nia Zeki in the building. Grace and peace, my dear sis. It's been a minute. Good to see you again. S. Dowdy in the building, peace and blessings. Got Minister B in the building, peace and blessings to you as well. This journey in the building, peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. Authentic Israelite, grace and peace. Total blackout. Disrupt the system. That's what's up. That's what's up. Got Sister Gwendolyn Scott in the building. Peace and blessings to you. And Brooke Queen up in the house. Cannot forget you. Cannot forget you. Good to see you as always. I like what Trayvon Smith said. If you seek me, you will find. That's right. And when we seek the Most High, we draw near unto him. He will draw near unto us. All right. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to quiet the tunes so that we can go ahead and have this discussion. So what I want to know from all of you who participated, okay? From all of you, let me see. Okay, there it is. It's off now. From all of you who participated in the blackout, because my time technically is 9:13 p.m., right? Okay. Eastern Standard, I believe, is 8:13. Central, it's 7:13. Yeah, we become time zone buffs around here when we're on these platforms because everybody's in a different time zone. So we kind of got to like, okay, what time zone are you in? And what time zone are you in? But if you have participated in the blackout boycott today, do me a favor. Put a 1 in the chat if it was difficult for you. If it was difficult, if holding back your dollars for one day was difficult for you, put a 2 in the chat. If you like, nah, I was good. I was all right. I wasn't falling to pieces. I mean, listen, keep it honest, keep it a buck. If it was difficult for you to withhold spending money today and you participated, put a 1. If it was not difficult for you, put a 2 in the chat. All right. Let me go ahead and put those numbers up there real quick. Brian said, I was sweating. I was sweating bullets, y'all. I was sweating. Brian, I don't know if you meant to put a number 2, but it's all good. Listen, at least you're being honest, okay? Some of us are harder. Some people got, little issues when it comes to shopping. I get it. I mean, look, that's the way it is. I mean, it is what it is sometimes. But thank you for participating anyway. As Dowdy says, I'm good. This journey, I'm good. Authentic Israelite. I was fine. I was butter. I was straight. Okay. So many of you are saying that y'all were good, that this one day where you did not spend your dollars, you weren't like, oh, Brian. Yep. Brian said, no, I was good. Yeah, you fooled me, Brian. You fooled me for a minute there. Desiree, listen, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Don't you even beat yourself up, because that is a reality, right? It's a reality. But I appreciate your honesty. But me and y'all, maybe you got your food beforehand. Maybe you got your food a day or two before. Kami says, Nelvis, I was sweating a little bit, but then I went to pray, and the Most High was like, you're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. Sticks was right with you. You was praying right with you. 1 and 2. Jacqueline said, 2, I was boycotting the entire Black history. Right? Because the history that they give us is kind of like a pseudo history, right? I would say it's not. It is pseudo in some aspects. Okay, there's some legitimacy to the history that they give us, but they're not telling us everything, right? And we're gonna actually talk about that. So I got another poll for y'all. All right. So nobody else put in your 1s and 2s. Nobody else put in your 1s and 2s, because as y'all saw in the title, we're going to be talking about Black Wall Street. Okay, why we black out. So here's my second question for y'all. I know a lot of people are familiar with Black Wall Street and the Tulsa Massacre now. Okay, not everybody. So we'll talk about it some tonight. But how many of y'all, okay, whether you are boomer, Gen X, millennial, Gen Z, did I miss one? Gen Alpha. I think they're still in school. I said Gen X. Was there something after millennial that I missed? I can't remember. Anyway, how many of y'all remember being taught about Black Wall Street and the Tulsa Massacre in school? Put a 1 in the chat if you were taught about this in school. If you were not taught about Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, if you were not in school, put a 2 in the chat. I'm going to read the room. Let's see where we at. Let's see where we at. I feel you right there. I mean, I got 10 of them. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You know, and teenagers. I got 4 teenagers right now. And the 2 eldest are, they some grown men. They some grown 6'1", 6'2", with all the way to 6'7" dudes. All right. So yeah, I feel you. Eating us out of house and home. Say boomer, Gen X. Y'all gotta help me out here. Millennial, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha. Okay, I didn't miss anybody. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's take the poll. Okay, all right. So Brother Timothy says no. No. I was not taught about Black Wall Street in school. I mean, I'm assuming most of us went to public school, right? I mean, some of y'all got, private school. Some of y'all went to, I don't know how many of y'all were homeschooled. We're a homeschool family. Shout out to homeschool. Okay, Kami, in college, right? In college. That's when you learned in college. Okay, but I'm talking about in public school when you were a teenager, middle school, all of those grades. Did you learn about Black History Month then? Okay. All right, 2, and I live in Oklahoma, right? I live in Oklahoma. Now, Authentic Israelite, they tapped in on something, okay, very important. I grew up in the Caribbean. I feel you. And if you get my book, you're going to understand exactly how much I feel you if you've not already gotten my book. Because coming out of a Caribbean household, you don't really learn a whole lot about Black history from American Black history. You really just don't, outside of, the certain figureheads that they always have up, but you really don't learn a lot. You learn even less about Black history. Okay. So I feel you on that. Big 2 for the boomers. I love y'all. Y'all are awesome. Okay. So we can all agree, because see, I am from a Caribbean household, but I grew up in the States. Okay, for those of y'all who don't know, I didn't grow up in the Caribbean. I spent time in my later teenage years, and I graduated from school in the Caribbean. So I know the history that they taught, and it was Caribbean and Virgin Island history, which they did a very good job at. But I grew up predominantly in my younger years in the States, and no, I was not taught about Black History Month in my school, just like none of y'all were, okay? Not Black History Month, excuse me, Black Wall Street. Now, that was intentional. It was intentional not to treat or to teach us about Black Wall Street, not because of the destruction that happened, in my humble opinion, not because of the amount of destruction, because see, they love talking about our oppression. I know that y'all can agree that when it comes to the framing of Black history, so-called Black history, they love highlighting and glorifying and putting a spotlight on our oppression. But I believe that the reason why they did not discuss Black Wall Street was because in Tulsa, Oklahoma, is one of them. There were more Black Wall Streets, which we're getting ready to watch a video that talks about it. Okay, for those of you who didn't even realize, like me, I just maybe a 1 or 2 years ago realized that there were more than one Black Wall Street. Okay, some of y'all, y'all know this. Y'all had y'all parents was Black Panthers. Okay, so y'all know about every atrocity that happened to us, but they did not tell us, in my humble opinion, is because Black Wall Street represented our prosperity, our economic prosperity. You have to understand that they do not like us to understand anything outside of the struggle. They don't want us to understand greatness among us. The fact that we can unify together, we can mobilize together, and we can make an impact. I mean, a huge impact. And I believe that the operations like Black Wall Street were one of the reasons why segregation was introduced into the American system, right? Because first they didn't want us. It was white only this and white only that. They didn't want to trade dollars with us. They didn't want us in their communities, blah, 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 right? So they put us in the worst conditions and said, pick yourselves up by your bootstraps. And our ancestors did. And so you had Black Wall Streets that were formulated, and they were prospering. Unity among our people and prospering in every single account that you could. Every industry that you could think of, they were prospering at that time. And then jealousies arose. Now, Black Wall Street, of course, was started because of the movie The Birth of a Nation and the KKK, right? But we know now that there were other Black Wall Streets. And I'm going to go ahead, for those of you who are like me, who didn't know, right, that there were a lot of different of these events. These are untold stories. I'm going to share a video, okay? And I'm going to give my commentary on it, and I'm going to be back, right? But this is an important thing for us to understand, because we can't just assume that everyone is in the same exact spot when it comes to understanding the significance of the impact of our shared unity. All right. So let me go ahead and share this, and then I'll comment.
The legacies of Black Wall Streets, it's important for people to remember, because there are so many people who have no idea that there were these vital, dynamic places where African Americans were living out their vision of the American dream, aiding opportunity and hope and progress for their communities.
June 1st, 2021 marks 100 years since the Tulsa Race Massacre, when as many as 300 people were killed as an angry white mob destroyed a prosperous Black neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, once known as that city's Black Wall Street. But Tulsa's story is part of a larger history of segregated prosperity in many American cities.
The term Black Wall Street really came into popularity around the turn of the century. So as Jim Crow begins to really take shape and African Americans are forced into segregated parts of the cities, these communities, rise up in places like Durham, North Carolina, and Little Rock, Arkansas, Jackson, Mississippi, and people begin to notice that there are all kinds of businesses and services that grow there, and so they kind of take on the name Black Wall Street.
One of the biggest and longest lasting Black Wall Streets was in Richmond, Virginia, a neighborhood called Jackson Ward.
So the factors that led to Richmond being the cradle of Black capitalism lay in the diverse slave economy that existed at that time. So you had African Americans who were involved in not just agricultural slavery, but also in urban and industrial slavery. Then after the Civil War, you had this concentrated community of African Americans who had been working in the city, in factories and in fields and rural areas around Richmond. They just continued to build the institutions and the communities and the neighborhoods that they had begun even before the war. And then you begin to have a lot of really important financial firsts, such as insurance companies and banks, which really highlight Richmond as the first Black Wall Street.
Okay. So I want, for those of you who are from the Virginia area, I don't care whether it's Richmond, I don't care what part it is. Richmond is a part of the DMV. Shout out to the DMV. I grew up in the DMV. So any of y'all who are from the Virginia area, did you know that? Put a 1 in the chat if you knew that, and put a 2 in the chat if you didn't. The first Black Wall Street was in Richmond. Put a 1 in the chat if you knew that. If you didn't know, put a 2 in the chat. See, we're taking a pulse because we have to peel back the layers sometimes, right? We have to pull back the layers. If we pull back the layers, then we're going to understand and have more empathy for where our brothers and sisters are today. Okay. So if you're from the Virginia area, all right, any part of the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia area, right? So for those of y'all who don't know, in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is not too far from Richmond, it is actually the wealthiest Black area, Prince George's County, in the United States. Now, I didn't live in the wealthy part, okay? I didn't live in the wealthy part, okay? But it is. And see, this is one of the reasons why we have to educate ourselves. This is why we have, see, sometimes what we do is that we get a little piece of information and then we run with that information and we start operating out of that information as though everyone around us knows the same set of information. But when we peel the onion back a little bit, we realize, like, wait a minute, I didn't know that. Like, I had no idea. The first Black Wall Street was in Richmond, Virginia. Shout out to Sister Ruama in the building. Grace and peace to you, my dear sis. Okay, so this is why we have to begin to peel back the onion. It's the last day of Black History Month. Why not? Let's go ahead and continue to watch.
One of the most storied figures in Jackson Ward's history was a banker and businesswoman named Maggie Lena Walker.
You cannot study Maggie Lena Walker and not be fascinated, with her. She was born enslaved in 1864, right toward the end of the Civil War. And she really saw economic empowerment of African American women as the path forward.
Walker started her banking career at a mutual aid society called the Independent Order of St. Luke. Founded in 1867, St. Luke was established to help freed slaves gain economic independence.
In 1901, she said, let us have a bank. And she said, I'm specifically talking to the women here, the good women here, whose money is in this organization. And she was able to bring that vision to fruition in 1903 when she became the first Black woman bank president.
The St. Luke Penny Savings Bank, later named the Consolidated Bank and Trust, was acquired in 2005, but Walker's home in Jackson Ward is still standing.
As you see around me, the homes have been restored on the outside, while Mrs. Walker's home has been restored to its full glory as much as we could, using artifacts that belong to Maggie Walker and her family. Because
we still get a lot of people who come in and they do our tours, and they are still amazing. Why didn't I know about her before? Why have I not heard this story before? And it is a story that has been preserved quite fully in Richmond itself, but not so much across the country.
Okay, fam, we're doing this again. How many of y'all have heard of this beautiful and powerful sister? Walker, I believe her last name is. How many of y'all, whether you are in the Richmond area or not, in the Virginia area or not, how many of y'all heard of this woman who opened up the first Black bank, female-owned Black bank in America? You see, this is one of the reasons. If you haven't heard, put a 2. If you have, put a 1. Listen, this is why I said what I said. This is why I said what I said. How the information was kept away from us about these Black Wall Streets because of the reality that we're talking about some serious prosperity and ingenuity at a time that was unprecedented in American society. As Dowdy did here. That's awesome. That's awesome. Because if you're in the Virginia area, they say that this is something that, this is a history that has been preserved. And that's beautiful. But not for all of us. We didn't know. We didn't know anything about this. And that is how they designed it. They designed it to keep us in a stupor of ignorance and the idea that the only thing that we're good for is oppression and disunity. The only thing that we're good for as a collective is never getting along. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. We all fall for the okie doke because we get frustrated when we don't see our community coming together. And we say, see, this is why we can't work together. See, y'all, this is why we can't never unify. See, this is why black folk can't do this, can't do that, can't. I used to read a book my mother gave me when I was a little girl, and it said that can't or can't is not a word. Okay? And I don't remember the book. I just remember her saying, in the book, read that to me, a moral of the story type book. We have been embedded with the can't spirit in American society because of the loss of historical understanding and context of the greatness of our ancestors. And it was done intentionally. Let's continue.
What is happening now in Jackson Ward is that those who remember the stories are coming together to make sure that they are no longer forgotten. So the neighborhood may not look as it did when she walked these streets, but the memories are still there.
In its heyday, I imagine that it was fabulous to live in Jackson Ward. Any kind of service that you needed, you could get, in Jackson Ward. And I would just say, walking into the St. Luke Bank, I think had to be a treat. First of all, Magdalena Walker made sure that it was beautifully appointed with mahogany and marble. And I could just imagine a maid, a domestic, working in a white person's home in another part of the city. And she walks into the bank and she's greeted probably, by not just her first name, but she's called Miss or Mrs. And I just can imagine that at its height, Jackson Ward was an incredible experience. But then there's also the dark side, and that is that it is a segregated community. Magdalena Walker accommodates segregation by really lending mostly in these segregated areas. So there, I think in the midst of this affluence and this dynamism, there's always that dark cloud of racism and Jim Crow that kind of just outside, there is a world that wants to continue to treat them as second-class citizens.
Now, that is an unfortunate reality, right? Not the segregation aspect of it, but the reality that in the face of so much negativity, so much vitriol, all because of who we really are from a spiritual standpoint, the children of Israel, that there was all of this hate that was coming their way to stop them from being able to be as productive as they could have been. This is why they went out of their way to destroy all of the Black Wall Streets that were American made. Okay, not just in America, but throughout the diaspora and on the continent. Okay, and then hide the history from us. So the segregation aspect, no, because here's my thing. When I look in the Bible, I see that Israel was already a segregated, separated, set apart nation from all other nations. There were strangers that were mixed in because they chose to follow the principles of the Most High. They didn't come in and make a decision that they're going to do what they wanted to do. They were going to serve the deities that they wanted to serve and be at peace among the people. That's not how it went. It was like, okay, if you're here to align yourself up with Yahuwah's laws, statutes, and commandments in the same way that Israel has to. It's one law for both the homegrown, the homeborn, and for the stranger. And so not many people, just like in today's time, just extractions of people, primarily Hamitic people, mixed multitude, not even as much Japhetic, but primarily Hamitic, a swath, a small portion came out compared to all the other groups of people. They wanted to fight Yasharel continually fight. Why? Because of the hatred, because of the exceptionalism of Yasharel from antiquity, all the way back then to this day. Let's continue.
Jackson Ward was a haven for Black business for many years, but like Tulsa's Black Wall Street, it too came to an end.
The difference between the end of Jackson Ward and the end of Tulsa is really a difference in degree. And so for Jackson Ward, it was more of a slow death.
A wide range of factors caused Jackson Ward's economic decline, including redlining, which kept capital out of Black neighborhoods, slum clearance, where cities razed old buildings without rebuilding in certain areas, and a highway system that cut right through the neighborhood. But the final end to Jackson Ward's Black Wall Street days came on the heels of the civil rights movement and desegregation.
So ironically, at the very time that you begin to have opportunity, at least legally, for African Americans to have equal accommodation, to be able to get, equal access to education, is at the same time that these communities have been so undermined in the decades previous. And so when they have choices to make, they, move to suburbs and leave really the most vulnerable and needy living in places like Jackson Ward. The occurrence of diminishing Black wealth has a long history in our country. I mean, it really takes root in slavery. There you have hundreds and hundreds of years of unpaid Black labor, and then being disenfranchised and their wealth being undermined in other ways. I think that we just really have to deal with this long-standing American exploitation of African Americans.
You can go to your bank tomorrow and you can say, until you as a corporation start to speak on our behalf, I want all my money.
In recent years, there's been a movement to reinvest funds into Black banks and businesses. One of the organizations advocating for this financial shift is Bank Black USA, which helps people find and invest in Black banks.
And we saw that there was this call to action for people to move their money from the larger institutions that had maybe a history of discriminatory practices and predatory lending practices, and move that money to MDIs, which are minority depository institutions.
According to the FDIC, MDIs are more likely to lend to lower and moderate income communities and help promote economic viability in these areas.
So we started researching these MDIs, and we quickly found out that Black financial institutions are undersupported and undercapitalized, right? Black banks are in decline. For example, there was 50 of these institutions in 2001. In 2021, there's barely 20. Our solution was to create resources for people to be able to compare the banks and services, their financial health, the community impact, because we do believe that these MDIs can play an integral role in closing that racial wealth gap, but they're undersupported.
If you don't learn about the origins and history of Black wealth, you'll fall into the trap of thinking that there was no Black wealth. Take time to learn about Jackson Ward. Take time to learn about Durham. Take time to learn about Tulsa. Let's bring these stories forward and remember those times of Black excellence. And it can come again if we follow the roadmap that they set before us.
All right. I think that was pretty powerfully spoken. And especially concerning the Black banks. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I want to look at this comment right here from Thank Y'all Now. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio in the 50s. We had our own hospital, Forest City Hospital, bank, all Black owned businesses and jobs until they redlined and moved jobs out. Today, it looks like a war zone. And this is what they do. And they have to do this in order to keep us in a state of ignorance and stupor, right? To believe that there's no excellence or very little excellence among us. And the way they frame their language oftentimes is to downplay any of our achievements as though they're not that great. They're not that admirable. But they do that because of the jealousy that is in their heart. Right? Right, Phantom Warrior? What's a red line? But we know that they did this. They built infrastructure to box us into ghettos. Interestingly enough, we know that the term ghetto was used in Germany to be a stigma on the Jewish community, so that they would know that these people were different, right? But yet that's what they box us in. You see, there's so many things that they get muddied in the water, so that we don't understand what's pointing back at us all the time. We don't understand how they keep us ignorant of who we actually are, right? We are the true Yahudim. That's why they put us in ghettos. So speaking of banks, let's talk a little bit more about banks. And I'm going to have to run a poll on y'all again, okay? I'm just going it's going to be that kind of an evening. All right, we just going to have that kind of conversation. So tell me, put a 1 in the chat if you've ever heard of the name Bernard Garrett, okay? Put a 1 in the chat if you are familiar with the name Bernard Garrett. Put a 2 in the chat. Y'all gonna be like, dang, all these 2s I gotta keep putting up. If you never heard of Bernard Garrett, all right? Because again, we need to understand that so much of what's happened to us has been to continually keep us in absolute ignorance. Okay? We all on the same page. Never heard of Bernard Garrett. I'm going to tell y'all when I heard of Bernard Garrett. One day I was scrolling through social media. I don't know. I saw a video that I was interested in. I watch a plethora of videos. I like watching business videos. I like watching organizational videos. And so depending on what you watch, your algorithm will shoot out certain things to you. And there was a movie, right, about this black man. And when I tell y'all the movie, the trailer, you might recognize it. About this black man who decided to do something that was really unheard of. He decided to try to own his own bank, okay? But not just own a bank, but to own a large swath, large banks, okay? And Samuel L. Jackson was in the movie with him as the person who was his partner in crime, all right? And so I don't know if you've heard of the movie. It was called The Banker, but this is when I first learned about him. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this man. The black businessman who built an empire despite Jim Crow oppression. Now, this guy was like he was a genius, okay? He was, this brother right here was smooth. He was a smooth operator, a genius. This is what he did. He said, using white colleagues as frontmen, Bernard Garrett bought real estate, made millions, and uplifted fellow blacks in pursuit of the American dream. So let's read a little bit about what he did, a little bit about his story so y'all can understand how he did what he did. During the 1950s and 60s, the civil rights movement dominated the political landscape. But for Bernard Garrett, an African-American born and raised in the South, the surest path to improving conditions for Black Americans was by achieving economic freedom. Garrett, unbeknownst to many, purchased at least 177 buildings, including what was considered to be the tallest structure in downtown Los Angeles in 1961, the Bankers Building, all the while creating life-changing opportunities for African Americans. The only time a man is really, truly rich is when he controls money, Garrett said years later in an interview about his life. Born in the small town of Willis, Texas in 1922, Garrett showed a knack for business early on. He worked odd jobs, completing the 11th grade in Houston and running his own cleaning business. Garrett knew, however, he would need to leave the racial oppression of Texas if he wanted a chance to become a wealthy entrepreneur. So he moved his family to California, right? And then I'm going to just kind of summarize this part. He meets a guy named Mr. Barker, all right? And Mr. Barker owns some property. And he says, I want to buy that property from you. And Mr. Barker was like, that's in a white neighborhood. And he was like, yeah, that's all good. But the reality is the property's kind of dilapidated and it's broken down. I'll buy it from you and I will fix it up. And then I will sell it back to the tenants and give you a good yield on your interest. Okay. So Barker and Garrett teamed up, but he said, this is what I need you to do. In order for us to work together, we're going to partner investing in properties. I need you to be the face of the deals. If they see my face, it's not going to work. I'm going to remain invisible. I'll deal with the numbers. You be the face. So by 1954, Garrett was worth $1.5 million, the equivalent of $14.3 million in current times, making him one of the wealthiest blacks in the country. But he wanted to make bigger deals, and after Barker passed away unexpectedly, Garrett became bolder in his mission. So this is when he has the big idea. Garrett approached Joe Morris, a successful black businessman who owned 2 nightclubs. He proposed that they buy the Bankers Building, where most of the banks in LA were headquartered. The plan required what Garrett later described as hiring faces, white men he coached and financed to carry out his deals while he and Morris remained anonymous. The faces pretended to be the CEO, overseeing the day-to-day operations, while Garrett and Morris, the true owners, posed, now get this, y'all, because this is the only way they want to see us, posed as chauffeurs and janitors to monitor their ventures under the radar, either by mopping the floors of their businesses or advising their faces during drives to work. Garrett hired Matt Steiner as the face of the Bankers Building acquisition, and it worked. Garrett traded his residential property deeds for stock in the Bankers Building, gaining a controlling interest in the corporation that owned the property. Now, here's where things get tough, because now brother is very rich. He is like rolling in the dough, but he thinks about home, y'all. He thinks about his family back home where the family was still struggling, okay? He thinks about the black community that didn't have access to loans, right? Because they couldn't buy houses because the banks, the white-owned banks, weren't going to give them loans so they can buy their homes or buy small businesses or anything. So he said that he wanted to go back to Houston, Texas, to give relief to local colored people who were having great difficulty obtaining real estate loans. All right. So that time, again, there was an orchestrated effort to keep African Americans from becoming a viable economic competitor in the country, said Blair Smith, Chief Investment Officer of the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone Development Corporation, a commercial real estate lender. The building block to success, to building wealth, is equity. You have to have ownership. That's why real estate is so important. Creating opportunities for African Americans. He wanted to create these opportunities that for people that were continually subjected to redlining, were denied by banks, relegating them to segregated and impoverished neighborhoods and limited income potential. So basically, he used a front man, but because he was, in a racially charged area, they weren't as quick to believe the front face that was put before them, because the language of banking is a very particular language. And so they were a little suspicious. They were just a wee bit suspicious. And what ended up happening is that the front face of this bank, he didn't know anything about banking. Okay, he was just an actor. He was acting out a part, but didn't understand the intricacies of banking. And so he, under pressure, because of that, palm color, seeing his bosses make so much money, he wanted to become a partner with them. And so against their better judgment, they allowed him to own that bank, right? They allowed him to own the bank that they were working with. But the problem was, because he didn't understand banking, he ended up making some crucially poor decisions that resulted in the bank being, what is the word that I'm looking for? Like when the IRS, when they do an audit, so the bank was auditing. It was audited. And when they audited the bank, they found out the true owners of the bank were Garrett and the other gentleman. And when they found that out, it became a huge investigation, y'all. I mean, a huge investigation, to where ultimately they were not interested in the one who filed. They were interested in putting into prison Garrett and his partner. Why? Because they had the audacity as Black men to think that they can come to Texas and own banks. They had the audacity. And so he did end up going to prison for probably about 9 months. Not too long. But of course, the bank was taken from him. And a large part of his wealth was also removed because he had the audacity to be a black man and decide that he wants to see a change in the system. Now, I wanted to share that history with y'all. And for those of you who want to learn more about him and want to, get greater insight, I recommend that movie, The Banker. Okay, you can only find it on Apple TV. They did not promote this movie out there. They did not push it out there because they did not want people to be able to see, our people to be able to see someone as genius as he was. I mean, he put egg in their face. And they didn't want our people. They don't want our people to see it. But that movie came out in 2022, 2023. So y'all go look it up, The Banker. All right. So now what we're going to talk about are statistics. We need to understand statistics. All right. So let's talk about how many Black people are in America. All right. Let's talk about how many are in the United States of America. I'm talking about currently, right now. Let me just pull this up so y'all can see, because I just did a search on Google and I just want to pull it up. I didn't want to get into an article about it. I just want to do a regular Google search and then show it to y'all so that y'all can see that real quick. Okay, so 41.31 million as of 2023. 41.31 million, quote unquote, African Americans are in America. Okay. Now, out of that 41 million, I want to understand how many of us are small business owners. How many of us are small business owners? Let's take a look. This is U.S. Small Business Administration Office of Advocacy. Okay. These are the statistics for 2024. In 2019, Black business owners owned 3,589,567 businesses. Now, I want you to weigh that against the 41 million of us that are here. And Black business owners, 3.5 million businesses. Black-owned businesses employed 1.2 million Americans. Okay? 1.2. You see the total firms, total sales, 217 billion, total employer firms, 134,000, employer total sales, $133 billion. That's a lot. Number of employees, 1.2 million, annual payroll, 40 billion, non-employer firms, 3,400,000, non-employer total sales, 83 billion. But I want us to pay a particular attention to the number of business owners compared to the number of African American, quote unquote, in the nation. 41 million people and only 3 million businesses. We own 3% of the businesses in the United States, 3%. That's how much we own. And out of the businesses that we own, we hire 1.2 million Americans. It doesn't say if we hire only exclusively Black Americans, but 1.2 million Americans. Now, why is this important? Do you see the gap there? It's almost cut in half. Do you know how difficult it is to scale a business with no help? It is extremely difficult. Half of the business owners are doing every single thing by themselves. They are creating products or services, and they're pulling from whatever revenue stream that they have. So that usually comes in the form of a side hustle or a small amount of savings they've been able to amass over a period of years. They're not getting it handed down. It's not wealth transfer from their parents. Okay. They hustling on the side, man. They're like doing Uber
and Uber Eats. Come on, y'all, keep it a buck. To scale a business. I'm talking about scale, not just to start a business, but to scale it, because you need money in order to make money. So they have to pull from whatever revenue stream they have in order to market that product or service. They got to do bookkeeping to make sure their finances are in order. They got a network to bring greater awareness about that business. Market research to improve on the product or service. Researching and writing business plans to gain funding for that business. That's a lot to manage all by oneself, just yourself as a business owner. And then they still got to do what everybody else do. They got to take care of their families, manage their lives. They got to do it all. Half of Black American business owners, quote unquote, African American business owners, are doing all of that by themselves. It ain't easy, y'all. It ain't easy being a business owner. Now, why am I discussing this? Why am I discussing all of this? All of this about Black Wall Street, all of this about the Black Wall Streets, all of this about Mr. Garrett. See, you might be thinking that I'm advocating for a piece of the American pie. I promise you, I am not. What I'm trying to show you is that even with all of our efforts, this system has done everything in its power to keep us oppressed. You see, our ancestors, y'all bless them. Y'all bless them. They thought that it was about voting rights. They thought it was about civil rights. They thought it was about economic equality. If I could just get advanced on the same level economically with you. But this system has shown us again and again, no matter which form it comes in, whether it is communal or individual for the betterment of the community, they're not interested in equality or civility for that matter. No, they're not interested in shared prosperity. They're interested in subjugation of Black bodies by any means necessary. And see, the problem with us as a whole is we've tried everything. And I'm talking about us as a whole, as a collective. We've tried everything we can to pretzel our way into their good graces. We want as a collective so bad to be accepted by them, and anybody who tries to deny it, come on. Just take an honest look at our history, man. Just take an honest look. It's all about equality, right? But don't we understand that their prosperity is only because of our continual oppression? The only way that they have been able to gain the wealth that they got is not because they played fair, not because they played any parts of fair, but because they studied our ingenuity. They played us against our own creativity, and they monetize everything that we do. I mean, I was on Google the other day and I was waiting for this page to come up, and the page didn't come up. You know, like when the internet is buffering and then the page don't come up, but another page come up, and that page was like, oh, snap. Y'all seen that page before? The page be like, oh, snap. I'm telling you, I'm going to see a page, but hold up a minute. But this is on Google. Where'd they get that from? I was watching a show the other day, and it was some old white women on the show. And it was a joke. But they were talking about living in a retirement community and how they were sharing the guys there because it wasn't a whole lot of guys in the retirement community. So they came up with a little system, a little code. And the lawyer was like, well, what's y'all code? And it was like, garden hose before bros. Now, y'all know that's funny. Don't even fake the front. Y'all know that's funny. Y'all know where that came from. Garden hose before bros. I'm telling you, everything, every bit of creativity. I'm just saying, that was funny. I was like, yo, what? That's wild, boy. That's wild. But they monetize all of our creativity. You see, this is why I supported the blackout today. Y'all, it's not about helping DEI's finest white women. That's not what it's about. It's not about stifling Black business owners. I'm one. It's not about that. You see, for me, it's about the bigger picture. The bigger picture is that we've been playing their game for so long that we don't even realize how far behind we are. We don't. It's bad. United States Census Bureau, wealth by race of householder. Households with a white non-Hispanic householder were 10 times wealthier than those with a Black householder in 2021. 10 times wealthier. They're up here hollering at y'all on TikTok talking about how hard it is. Oh my goodness, it's so hard. I can't believe it. This is just, it's crushing me. It's crushing me. They don't understand crushing like we understand crushing. They don't understand. They don't have the first clue of what crushing feels like. As a matter of fact, I was listening to Tone Talks earlier. Shout out to Tone Talks. And it was talking about how it's so bad, how the wealth gap is so bad, and why. And it was going into the fact that the majority of the top 40%, because they'll make you think it's about Trump and Elon Musk and all that, but the top 40% of wealthiest white Americans, that's who you really need to be looking at. Because what they do is they hide their money by pulling out $10,000 at a time out of their bank account. They can't pull out anymore. Just $10,000 at a time goes underneath the IRS nose and giving it. That's how they deal with generational wealth. I think it was somewhere about 27. I can't remember if he said 27 or 40% of millennials, of which I am. I'm an older millennial. I'm a zennial. But from the age of 37 on down, they get assistance from their parents to pay their rent or their mortgages or a major bill every month. Every month. See, I don't know what that looks like. By the time I was 19, I was paying rent. I mean, am I the only one? I mean, I've had my family members gift me with things, gift me with money occasionally, but I've never lived whereby every single month a major bill of mine, rent, mortgage, is being paid for in part or in whole by a parent. I mean, if you have, put a 1 in the chat and then email me for your address, because you could, we can work something out. But this is their reality. This is their reality. And the sad thing about it is that we don't have the tenacity of our ancestors to be disruptors who are willing to sacrifice everything. You see, it feels good to talk about watching the West fall. But when it comes down to actionable steps to walk it out, many of our people are the first to hesitate. Many of them. So you allow them to make all the bread as long as you can enjoy the crumbs that fall from their table, my friend, I think you're sitting at the wrong table. You see, because our portion is the loaf. Our portion is the full basket and the full storehouse. That's what was apportioned to us before we got mixed up in all of this mess. But too many of us have never seen what that looks like in real time, so we don't understand that to have it all, we must first be willing to lose it all. We got to first be willing to make sacrifices so we can eat the good of our land. We need to think. We need to think along these lines. But it's not Bible. It's not Bible. I mean, we should be fasting and we should be praying. Let me tell you something. I am all for fasting and praying. I'm all for it. But the problem is we can use that as an excuse. You know what? Let me go ahead and just take you to the Bible. I think I've done enough talking about that. I'm going to tell you a little story. And I'm going to share it from 2 Kings chapter 2. I'm going to give y'all a synopsis of what this chapter is about. The prophet Elisha and the Syrian army. Okay? They were coming against the children of Israel, the king of Syria. They had a vast army, all right? And with this army, they were going to come against the children of Israel who were already in the middle of experiencing a famine. They were already in the middle of it. Already. And so Elisha, not Elijah, but Elisha, he had a servant, and he sent out his servant to go look at the Syrian army. So I'm going to pick it up in verse 12. And one of his servants said, "None, my Adon, O king, but Elisha the prophet that is in Israel, tell the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber." And he said, "Go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him." And it was told him, saying, "Behold, he's in Dothan." Therefore sent he thither horses and chariots and a great host, and it came by night and compassed the city about. And when the servant of the man of Alua was risen early, so Elisha's servant, and gone forth, behold, an host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, "Alas, my master, how shall we do?" And he answered, "Fear not." This is what I'm going to say to you, Yasharel. This is what I'm going to say to you, Yasharel. Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. Now, this man is looking at this vast Syrian army, but the prophet said, "Fear not," because even though you see this vast army, they ain't nothing compared to who's with us. And so Elisha prayed and said, "Adonai, I pray you, open his eyes that he may see." And Adonai opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. A mountain full of chariots of fire round about Elisha. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto Yahuwah and said, "Smite this people, I pray you, with blindness." Woo! Talking about the army. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said unto them, "This is not the way." So he goes to the Syrian army, y'all. And he said, No, this ain't the way. Neither is this the city. Follow me. I'm going to bring you to the man whom you see. But he led them to Samaria. So they were blind. They didn't know where they was going. He's like, "Come on, y'all go with me. I'm going to show you where you want to go." And it came to pass when they were come into Samaria that Elisha said, Yahuwah, open the eyes of these men that they may see. And Yahuwah opened the eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And then his servant said, should we take him out? And he answered him, no. Would you smite those whom you have taken captive with your sword and with your bow? Set bread and water before them that they may eat and drink and go to their master. So now you're really confused. You know, the way Yahuwah does things and the way he's done things with us all the time, it's so weird, right? Because people are so afraid of us. But what we don't understand, family, is that the reason why they're afraid of us, they don't know it, but the reason why they're afraid of us is because the one who is with us. It's not because we are operating in their nature. We don't operate in their nature. They always scared we're going to come back and we just going to be and do what it is that they have been and done unto us. He said, no, go and give them some bread and water. Let them go to their master. See, because they're already confused. They don't even know what's going on. They're like, what is going on? So he prepared a great provision for them. And when they had eaten and drank, he sent them away and they went to their master. So the bands of Syria came no more into the land of Israel. They did not come anymore. They were shook, y'all. They were shook off of one prophet because they didn't see that vast angelic army that was surrounded around them. Now I'm going to skip forward real quick because, again, we're still talking about the Syrian army, but I wanted to set it up so y'all understand. Now I'm going to go to the Message Bible because I believe that this passage right here really, really kind of like the way they broke it down, I think that they did it in such a way that's going to be so easy for anybody to understand. And this right here, this will also help us to see the problem of our people. Okay, now the Most High just created a miracle. Just created a miracle. Remember, they're in a famine. So this is the next chapter over. Elisha said, listen, Alua's word, the famine's over. This time tomorrow, food will be plentiful. A handful of meal for a shekel, 2 handfuls of grain for a shekel. The market at the city gate will be buzzing. The attendant on whom the king leaned for support said to the holy man, you expect us to believe that? Trapdoors opening in the sky and food tumbling out? You watch it with your own eyes, he said, but you will not eat so much as a mouthful. That's what Elisha told him. The famine's over, tomorrow food's going to be there. And then it was like, you really expect us to think that that's really going to happen? Sound like our people today. So let me get this right. So you expect that we supposed to pull our dollars out for one day and that's going to make an impact? That's going to do something? That's going to disrupt the system? That's what you saying to me? That's what you... And he said, okay. You're going to see it, but you ain't going to eat none. So let's continue because there was some men in here. They had nothing. So they had nothing to lose. It happened that 4 lepers were sitting just outside the city gate. They said to one another, what are we doing here? Sitting here at deletion's door? If we enter the famine-struck city, we're going to perish. And if we stay here, we're going to perish. They like, yo, either way, we done for. So let's take our chances in the camp of Aram and throw ourselves on their mercy. If they receive us, we'll live. If they delete us, we'll perish. We've got nothing to lose. So after the sun went down, they got up and went to the camp of Aram. When they got to the edge of the camp, surprise, not a man in the camp. Remember, Elisha took them away. He pushed them away. They were gone. The master had made the army of Aram hear the sound of horses and mighty army on the march. They told one another, the king of Israel hired the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Egypt to attack us. They were shook, y'all. Panicked, they ran for their lives through the darkness, abandoning tents, horses, donkeys, and the whole camp, just as it was, running for dear life. These 4 lepers entered the camp and went into a tent. First, they ate and drank. Then they grabbed silver, gold, and clothing and went off and hid it. And they came back, entered another tent, and looted it, again hiding their plunder. Finally, they said to one another, we shouldn't be doing this. This is a day of good news, and we're making it into a private party. So they up there living it up, boy. These lepers are like, yo, we got all this food. We got all this silver, this gold. But one of them with a conscience said, no, we can't do this. We gotta tell everybody what's going on among Israel. It says, if we wait around until morning, we'll get caught and punished. Come on, let's go tell the news to the king's palace. So they went and called out at the city gate, telling what had happened. We went to the camp of Aram and surprise. The place was deserted. Not a soul, not a sound. Horses and donkeys left tethered in tents abandoned just as they were. The gatekeepers got the word to the royal palace, giving them the whole story. Roused in the middle of the night, the king told his servants, let me tell you what Aram has done. They knew that we were starving, so they left camp and have hid the field. Okay? This is what the king tells his servants. They left the camp and hid in the field, thinking, when they come out of the city, we'll capture them alive and take the city. One of his advisors answered, let some men go and take 5 horses left behind. The worst that can happen is no worse than what can happen to the whole city. Let's send them and find out what happened. They took 2 chariots of horses. The king sent them after the army of Aram with orders. Scout them out, find out what happened. They went after them all the way to the Jordan. The whole way was strewn with clothes and equipment that Aram had dumped in their panicked flight. The scouts came back and reported to the king. The people then looted the camp of Aram. Food prices dropped overnight. We all complained about the price of eggs. But because of this supernatural event and the faith of 4 lepers, Elisha prophesied the famine is done, but y'all ain't going to see it. Let's see what ended up happening. Even though food prices dropped overnight, a handful of meal for a shekel, 2 handfuls of grain for a shekel, Elua's word to the letter. The king ordered his attendant, the one he leaned on for support, to be in charge of the city gate. The people turned into a mob, poured through the gate, trampling him to deletion. The king. It was exactly what the holy man had said when the king had come to see him. Every word of the holy man to the king. A handful of meal for a shekel, 2 handfuls of grain for a shekel, this time tomorrow in the gate of Samaria. With the attendant's sarcastic reply to the holy man. You expect us to believe that? Trapdoors opening in the sky and food tumbling out? Followed by the response, you'll watch it with your own eyes, but you won't eat so much as a mouthful. Proved true. The final stroke came when the people trampled the man to deletion at the city gate. You see, we have to understand that when it comes to Yahuwah, he could do whatever it is that he wants to do. But do we have faith to believe him for the impossible? Because again, like I said, we hear a lot about how we should fast and pray, and I'm all for it. But what I'm not for is doing nothing. I'm not for us sitting around pretending like fasting and praying is what we're doing when we're not really doing that. I'm not for that. I know that we can do nothing apart from Yah, but in him and through him, we can do all things. My concern is that we use that to distract ourselves from actually doing anything. And Yahuwah's not pleased. He's not pleased with that. So I got a couple more scriptures because I need y'all to understand that we're called to put the work in. In whichever capacity in this time he calls us, we're called to put the work in. Today, I chose to boycott. But we are called as a people to do the work. So, John chapter 5. This is an account of a man who was crippled. Let's read it. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Yahushua went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 4 porches. And these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first, after the stirring of the water, was made well of whatever disease he had. Now, a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Yahusha saw him lying there and knew that he already had been in that condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" Wait a minute. Let's pause on that for just a hot second. This man had been sitting at the beautiful, what is it, the pool of Bethesda. He'd been sitting at the pool of Bethesda for 38 years. Yahusha didn't go up to him and just say, "Okay, my son, be healed." He looked at him and said, "Do you want to be made well?" Come on now. Why you do that? Why did he do that? Why did he stop to ask the man who was clearly there waiting for the angel to stir the water so he can go in and get healed? Did he want to be healed? You see, I submit that he asked him that because a lot of people, they tend to take pleasure in pretending to want to be healed, and pretending to want to be set free, and pretending to want to be delivered, and pretending to want to see us as a collective restored in pretense. They'll set themselves up at the location to pretend like they're doing the work. But in reality, they're not willing to lift a finger for their own deliverance. He said, "Do you want to be healed?" And so what is this man going to do? He says, a sick man answered, "Sir, I have no man to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I'm coming, another steps down before me. I don't have nobody." You see, right away he goes to make an excuse. He uses that as an excuse. After 38 years? After 38 years, you don't recognize patterns? You'll be like, "Okay, he coming at this time now. Time, okay. It's time for me to go in. Okay, I already realized that I don't got nobody around me. It's time for me to jump in. I don't have nobody." But Yahusha took pity on him. And he said, "Okay, rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. He had to get up. Yahusha didn't pick him up. He didn't coddle him. He didn't pick him up. He picked himself up. He had to show that he actually wanted to be healed. He had to show it. The problem is that a lot of our people don't want to show it. They want to pretend like they want to be healed. They want to, okay, let me put that comment up there. He could have crawled. He could have crawled. He wasn't desperate enough. He could have crawled after 38 years. That's what I'm talking about. The man was comfortable in his condition. That's what it is. They want to take the first step, comfortable in this condition. This is the problem. And I hear it all the time, and it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. Let's go ahead and dig in a little bit more in the text. Luke chapter 5. Because I want you to see the religious teachers of the law in comparison to those who are desperate enough. On one of the days while Yahusha was teaching, some proud religious law keepers and teachers of the law were sitting by him. They had come from every town in the countries of Galilee and Judea and from Jerusalem. The power of Adonai was there to heal them. Some men took a man who was not able to move his body to Yahusha. He was carried on a bed. He had help. They looked for a way to take the man into the house where Yahusha was, but they could not find a way to take him in because of so many people. So what did they do, y'all? They made a hole in the roof over where Yahusha stood. They put a roof in the hole in that person's house. They weren't even their house. Then they let the bed with the sick man on it down before Yahusha. When Yahusha saw that faith, he said to the man, friend, your sins are forgiven. They put the work in. Oh, but what did the religious teachers of the law say? The teachers of the law and the proud religious law keepers thought to themselves, who is this man who speaks as if he is Alua? Who can forgive sins but Alua only? Yahusha knew what they were thinking. He said to them, why do you think this way in your hearts? Which is easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or get up and walk? So that you may know that the Son of Man has the right and the power on earth to forgive sins, he said to the man who could not move his body, I say to you, get up, take your bed, and go to your home. At once the sick man got up in front of them. He took his bed and went to his home, thanking Alua. All those who were there were surprised and gave thanks to Alua, saying, we have seen very special things today. I'm just saying, because there's always some religious zealots questioning. Always. And it's really sad. Why do we have to be that way? If I read further on in the passage, I believe they wanted to delete Yahusha then and there. They grew angry with him. Because how dare he think that he has the authority to heal and forgive sins? You see, I notice that those who are comfortable in the land the way it is, they never really have a problem with how the system has mishandled their brothers. Not in any tangible way, of course. I mean, they give nice speeches. They advocate for equality. But when it's time for us as a collective to be healed, they're the ones who remind us of the law. The very law, might I add, they stumble to keep. But Yahusha wants to know among all of us, which one of us want to be healed? How many of us are going to do what it takes to pick up our beds and walk? Are we willing to suffer for a season so that we can prosper for a purpose which is greater than us? I mean, we really got to ask ourselves that. Are you willing to suffer for a season so that you can prosper for a purpose that is greater than yourself? Now, I want to be clear about something. I don't want to suggest that a one-day blackout is the equivalent of Yahusha healing a crippled man. I just use that as an example of what it takes individually and collectively by faith to let go of this system step by step till Abba delivers us from it all together. You see, the ones who are going to complain in the wilderness are the ones who couldn't let go of the delicacies of the West. So what are you willing to give up? You want to fast? You can fast from things other than food. I mean, I believe that as a whole, as a unit, it doesn't take everybody to be on the same page. It really doesn't at all. It's just always a remnant who wants to unify, who wants to work together, who wants to see the trajectory of our nation shift. And they're willing to let things go in order for it to happen. I agree. Support Israelite-owned businesses. Help grow our economy so that we can put our dollars back into our community. No one's saying that right now in the lands of our captivity, we can fully stop supporting these corporations altogether. I mean, we still got to get gas, buy groceries like someone commented earlier, pay rent, mortgage. We got to eat. But you can begin to shift away from their businesses and support more of ours. And I can't even tell y'all how much I appreciate those of you who support my businesses by buying my products Like Yah's Big 10 Commands. I mean, many of you this month grabbed your copy of Israelite. It's currently sitting on number 2 on Amazon's best-selling new releases in Jewish theology. Tomorrow it'll probably be number 1 again. Praise Yahuwah. I truly appreciate y'all. This is how we make a difference in our economy, by supporting one another. So let's continue that mobilization. But don't allow yourself to get into a place where you are afraid that if you pull back from these corporations, if you pull back from this system, that it's going to hurt you. Learn to pivot. Learn to pivot. Allow Yahuwah to show you things that you hadn't seen before, so you can support the brethren, so you can support the nation, so that we can prosper. We can do our part. In our captivity, he gave us a great brain, and expected us to use what he blessed us with. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So tomorrow is the beginning of March, getting ready to enter into the real new year, right? And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do something to help further this goal. Yahuwah has blessed me with a lot of ingenuity, a lot of creativity, and I'm thankful for it. We'll pin this in the comment section really quickly. I'm grateful for this platform that he's given me. And what I want to do is I want to use this platform specifically for the month of March to help push more Israelite businesses to the forefront. So if you have an Israelite business that you want to advertise, I'm going to give you 50% off of advertising on this platform. I have a lot of engagement for a small channel. Trust me when I tell you, I look at the metrics. Channels that have 50, 60, 70,000, 100,000 subscribers or more times, they have around the same engagement that I have. Roughly 4,000 to 5,000 views per video, and depending on the topic, even higher. And so if you are a Black business owner that supports the community, like you're not trying to push products that are going to disservice us, not toxic products, but things that are going to support our community, I'm offering 50% of my advertising services for the month of March. 50% off. My services start at $100. Slash that in half. This is how I help. Because understand that all of us have to work together. See, Black Wall Street didn't happen on a hookup. Can I get a free ride? No, they worked together. And so what I'm advocating for is that we work together. So if you're interested and you have a small business, I don't care what your business is in terms of online or if it's storefront, if you're interested in advertising, fill out that form and then I will give you my advertising packet and we can go from there. My prayer is that we can mobilize together. There will be further boycotts that they're scheduling to have. I'm not saying you need to join all of them. I am saying let's begin to work together as a united front. Is there a Hebrew shopping site? I know that there are different Black-owned business shopping sites, but I don't know if there's a specific one that is directly tied to the Israelite community. And patron those Black-owned business directories. Okay, patron them. They need to be able to get more people to patron what they do. I mean, I'm thankful that a lot of people where I live, I can support Black-owned businesses because I'm in the Caribbean. But I know doing that legwork sometimes is a little harder in the States. But I still implore you to try to do the best that you can to support. Is this only for those selling products? No. This is for those who have products or services. Okay? So service-based, you know, things like maybe you have a housekeeping service in a particular area. Maybe you have coaching services that you do online, things of that nature. So no, this is not just for products, but it has to be things that are going to be for the betterment of our community to build us up. All right. Let me see. On Facebook, there are Israelite-specific shopping, farming, dating, etc. Beautiful. Beautiful. Very good. Very good. All right. So I think we've covered a lot here tonight. And I'm thankful for those of you who have tuned in. And I'm thankful for those of you, again, who have continually supported this platform. Thank you. Thank you for your continual showing up, you giving likes, you giving shares, and you subscribing. And thank you for those of you who continue to give financially as well. I want to give a shout out to Deborah Mangrum, who has given a super sticker tonight. Thank you very much for your gift. I appreciate you, and I'm thankful that this has blessed you tonight. Let's continue to do the work, family. Let's continue to support one another. Let's continue to pray and work. To pray and work, not one or the other. Pray and work. Because we are a mighty people when we are a united people. All right, family. May Yahuwah bless and strengthen you. And until next time that he brings us together, may he keep you and your family. As always, love yourselves, family. Love Yasharel without hating your enemies. And until next time, Yah bless and Salamah.